You're listening to Signal Lost, original alien fiction. New story every week. I'm glad you found the frequency.
Some of you have already seen me. I want to begin there because it is the only part of this I can prove, and because it will decide whether you believe the rest. If you have been following these accounts, if you are one of the people who watches the edges of things, then you have seen a man in the background. At the far end of a street, across a car park, in the corner of a photograph nobody was looking at. I know you gave me a name. I know what it is. I have been told it 3 times now by people who found me and wanted to know if it was really me. And each time I have said yes, and each time they have gone away frightened, because they were hoping I would say no. So, yes, I am the man in the background. I am the one you call the Cartographer. I did not choose the name, and I do not much like it. But I have earned it more literally than any of you know, because for 19 years I have been making a map. My name does not matter, and I am not going to give it. Nothing about me is interesting except what I have seen. And I am aware that I have spent 2 years being a figure of mystery to a small number of very attentive people. And I want to end that tonight, because the mystery of me is a distraction, and there is no more time for distractions. I am not part of it. I have never been part of it. I am a man who noticed something in 2006 and has been chasing it since, badly, alone, at the cost of everything else, and who has arrived, far too late, with nothing useful, at the only piece of information that matters. I have been to Meridian. I will be brief about myself, because you have waited 2 years for the town, not for me. I was a surveyor, that is all. I mapped land for a living. Boundaries, easements, road schemes. And I was good at it in the specific way that mattered later, which is that I could look at a landscape and see the difference between how it is and how it is drawn. In 2006, I was working a boundary dispute in open country, and I found a road that was not on any of my sheets. Not a track, a road. 2-lane, surfaced, in good repair, running east and a little south through country where nothing had any business running straight. I mapped it, because that is what I do. I went back a week later with better equipment. It was still there, and the sheets still did not have it. And when I filed a correction, the correction came back rejected, on the grounds that the road did not exist. That is where it started. That is the whole of my origin story. A man who draws maps for a living found a road that the maps refused to admit, and could not let it go. Everything after that was 19 years of following roads that should not exist, which is a very slow way to discover that they all lead to the same place. And along the way, and this is the part you have noticed, I started finding the people. Not deliberately at first. I would be surveying an anomaly, and there would be a woman across the road who had clearly not slept in a month. I would be photographing a junction, and there would be a man in a stopped van looking at a sign. Over the years, I learned to recognize them on sight, the way you learn to recognize anyone in your own trade. I began going to where I expected them to be. I watched, and I photographed, and I wrote down what I saw. And I did not intervene. I want to address that, because I know how it looks, and because 2 of you have written to me about it in language I deserved. I did not intervene because in 19 years, I have never once seen it happen while there was still something to prevent. By the time I could recognize a marked person, they were already marked. The encounter was always in the past tense. I was not a man standing by while people were taken. I was a man arriving at the scene afterward, over and over, and writing it down. Because writing it down was the only thing I could do that might eventually be worth something. I told myself that for 19 years. I no longer believe it, but I still think it was true. I found Meridian the way a surveyor would. That is my one small pride in all of this. I did not have a vision. I was not called. I did not wake at 17 minutes past 3 and feel the pull that the people of that harbor town felt. I triangulated it. 19 years of anomalous roads, plotted on one enormous composite sheet in a room I stopped letting anyone into. Every unmapped stretch, every impossible straight, every bearing, I extended them all. And where enough lines cross, you have a point. And the point sat in open country in the middle of nowhere, in a place that every map in existence agrees is empty ground. Then, I did the thing that took me the last 4 years, and it is the reason I know what I know. I dated them. Every road I had found, I had also recorded when I found it. And when I sorted my 19 years of anomalous roads by date and looked at the composite, I saw what any surveyor would see, and what nobody who had not spent their life on this could possibly have noticed. The network was being built outward. The oldest roads I had recorded were near the point. The newest were far from it. Every year, the reach extended. New, impossible roads appearing further and further out, into new counties, toward new towns. Like a route system, or a rail network, or the approach roads a country builds around a city years before the city needs them. It was not a place people were being drawn toward. It was a place that was extending itself toward people, patiently, over decades, at the rate of a few miles a year in every direction, and accelerating. I drove to the center on the 14th, because by then I understood the calendar as well as any of you do. The last 40 miles I want to describe carefully. The roads were exactly as the driver described them in his account. Helpful, wide, well-surfaced, obvious at every junction, running straight through country that has no straight lines in it. I have surveyed roads my entire adult life, and I want to tell you the specific thing that was wrong with them, because he could not have known it, and I did. They had no engineering history. A real road is a palimpsest. It has been widened, resurfaced, patched, rerouted around a farm that is no longer there. You can read a century of committee decisions in the surface of it. These had none of that. They were of a single build, uniform camber, uniform surface, uniform age, for 40 miles, with no seams, no patches, no evidence of a single repair or alteration ever having been made. They had not grown. They had been placed, complete, all at once. And there were no services on them, no laybys, no signs except the one word. No fuel, no food, no phone masts. None of the parasitic commerce that attaches itself to any road humans use. It was infrastructure with no economy on it, which is a thing that does not exist, because roads and the things that feed off roads arrive together. Unless the road is not for commerce, unless the road is for one journey, made once, by everyone, in one direction. At 2 in the morning I came over a low rise, and the country opened out, and there it was below me in the dark, every light on. I am going to describe what I saw plainly and in order, and I am not going to interpret it, because I have spent 11 months trying to interpret it, and I have nothing. It is a town of perhaps 4,000 houses. I counted the blocks and estimated. I would stand by that figure within a few hundred. It is finished. That is the first thing. It is not a ruin, not a construction site, not an abandoned place. Every house is complete. Roofs, glazing, guttering, paint. Gardens laid but not grown. Turf down, borders dug, nothing planted. Curbs true, drains in. Streetlights lit, every one of them, all night, in a town where no one was walking. It is brand new, and it has never been used. That distinction is the whole of the horror, and I need you to hold on to it. Abandoned places are full of information. Wear, damage, the marks of people leaving in a hurry. This had none. No litter, no tire marks on the road surface, no scuffs on a doorstep, no wear pattern on a single pavement. 4,000 houses in which no one has ever once walked from a car to a front door. The street plan is wrong. I am a surveyor. This is precisely my area. Human street plans are compromises, with rivers, hills, old field boundaries, the farm somebody would not sell in 1890. They are a record of an argument between a plan and a landscape. This street plan had no argument in it. It sat on the terrain without acknowledging the terrain, in a geometry that was internally consistent and completely indifferent to the ground it was laid on. Nothing curved because of a hill, nothing bent around anything. It had not been designed for that place. It had been designed, and then that place had been used. There were no cars, no wires, no aerials, no satellite dishes, no bins, no post boxes, no shops, no school, no pub, no church, no cemetery. 4,000 houses and nowhere to buy food and nowhere to bury anyone. Whatever a town is for, this was not for that. And on every door there was a name. I walked into it. Of course I did. 19 years. I want to be honest that I was not frightened at first, and that the calmness I felt was, I now think, the same administered calmness the diver described feeling in the water. I noticed it happening. I noticed that my hands were steady when they had no business being steady. And I kept walking anyway, which tells you something about 19 years. The plates on the doors are the size of a house number, metal or something like it. And on each one is a short arrangement of marks. Not our alphabet, not any script I have seen. And I have looked at a great many scripts since a linguist's account taught me to. I could not read them, but I did not need to read them to know what they were, for two reasons. The first is that they are all different. 4,000 doors and no two plates alike. Whatever the marks are, they are unique identifiers. One per house. The second is the one I have not been able to sleep properly since. They are grouped. Not sorted, not alphabetical. Grouped. Certain plates share elements with the plates on the doors either side of them, and those shared elements repeat down a street, and then change at the corner, and repeat again along the next one. Streets of them, neighborhoods of them, whole districts sharing one recurring element, subdividing into smaller shared elements, down to pairs of adjacent doors that are near enough identical but for a single stroke. Families. Somebody has drawn up 4,000 houses and allocated them, by household, by blood, by whatever grouping we go in, and put the names on the doors, and turned the lights on, and left the whole thing standing empty and lit in the middle of nowhere, waiting for the people who are already listed to arrive. I stayed until 3 in the morning. I photographed 111 doors before the camera stopped working, which it did all at once, and which I no longer think was a malfunction. At 17 minutes past 3, every streetlight in that town went out at the same instant, and every window in every empty house came on. 4,000 houses. No one inside any of them. Every light on at once, for 3 minutes, exactly as that lighthouse keeper described his own town doing on the night it was called. It was not a signal to me. I want to be clear. Nothing there was ever interested in me. It was the town doing what the town does at that hour. A system running its cycle. The way a factory floor runs at night with nobody on it. Rehearsing. I got back to my vehicle and I drove west for 6 hours. And I have not been back. I have 11 months and 111 photographs. And I am going to tell you exactly what I think. And then I am going to tell you what I do not know. And the second list is longer. What I think. I think Meridian is not a destination. I think it is accommodation. I think something has spent an extremely long time counting a population, sorting it into households and building, physically, in advance, out of materials I could not identify, somewhere to put them. The count that the astronomer heard being read back was not a tally of victims. It was a manifest for an occupancy. I think the marks are the allocation. I think the frequency is the notification. I think the roads are the approach. I think the harbor town that woke and walked inland was not being abducted. It was being moved. In the most ordinary sense of that word. The way you move a population when you have somewhere ready for them. And I think the midwife found the worst thing any of us has found. And I do not think she fully understood what she was telling us. Because a thing that marks children who have not been born yet, in the corridor of its own approach roads, is not finishing a count. It is planning for a second generation. Now what I do not know. And I want to say this plainly because everyone who has ever told one of these stories has been asked the same question, and every one of us has failed to answer it. I do not know what it is for. I do not know who built the town, or what they are, or where they are from, or whether "from" is even a word that applies. I do not know what happens to the people who arrive. I saw no cages, no machinery, no altars, no laboratory. I saw semi-detached houses with gardens laid ready for turf, and I do not know whether that is a mercy or the single most frightening thing I have ever seen. And I have thought about it every day since. I do not know if it is kind. I want to say that because it is the thing nobody says. Nothing I saw there was cruel. It was thorough. It was patient. It had prepared, at enormous cost, somewhere for everyone to live. And it had put our names on the doors. I do not know whether that is a threat or an invitation. And I no longer think the difference is as clear as it was when I was younger. And I do not know whether telling you this is the last useful thing I will ever do, or whether it is the thing it has been waiting 19 years for me to do. Because I know what the archivist worked out about people like her. And I am, in the end, a man with a map and an audience. And I have never once been able to tell the difference between doing my job and being used for it. I have made my map. It is finished. It is the only complete one, and it is going nowhere. I am not going to publish coordinates, and I would ask you to stop looking for them, though I know some of you will not. 19 years I have stood at the edge of other people's worst nights and written down what I saw. I told myself I was a witness. The linguist thought she was a reader. The archivist thought she was a collector. The midwife thought she was the first person to hold someone. We all thought we had a role that placed us slightly outside it. There is a plate on a door in that town with my arrangement of marks on it. I did not find it. I photographed 111 doors out of 4,000, and the odds were never good. But I know it is there. It is there for the same reason yours is. Because the allocation was made a long time ago, quietly, by something that has never once needed our consent for any part of this. I looked for that town for 19 years, and when I finally stood in it, I understood the thing that I have not been able to put down since. And it is the only piece of it I would want anyone to remember. It was finished before I got there. All of it. Every road, every curb, every light, every name on every door. Complete and immaculate and lit and empty and waiting. Not for me and not for you, but simply waiting. The way a room that has been made up waits for whoever is coming, whether or not they have been told. We have spent 2 years asking what it wants. I stood in 4,000 streets of finished houses with our names already on them, and I understood that it does not want anything from us at all. It has simply made arrangements, and it is very nearly ready. I am the one you call the cartographer, and this was my signal. Go back to the beginning. Watch them again. You will see me now.
Signal lost. New story every week. Have you heard the frequency?